From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello and welcome to the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 things in the past week that made us go wow. I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder. Very excited to have with us this week Tom Campbell. It's been an eternity. It's been too long.
I love that you're a regular, but you go away, you become a guest again. I love it. I love the
absence makes the heart grow fonder. That's what they say. And so, Tom, you're our Chief Creative Officer, and of course, James St. James, editor of the Wow Reports.
Who never leaves, and the heart, it grows colder and colder every time you see me.
It's like the first time every time, James. So today, September 25th, it's Native American Day, a day in honor of Native Americans who, were here before us, whose land this belongs to. And you can celebrate Native American Day by watching Miss Navajo, Grab, and Red Lake, 3 documentaries by Billy Luther, talented WoW celebrity, on WoW Presents Plus. All right, so let's start with the countdown. Let's leap in at number 10.
Number 10.
I want to talk about the new Drew Barrymore show. Has anyone seen it or seen clips of it?
I have seen clips of it. It is madness. It is utter bananas, crazy pants.
Syndication is a crazy business. Let's just start there, macro for a minute.
Okay.
I worked on The View, which is not syndication, but it turned me, at the very beginning, it turned me into sort of have a sensitivity for that world. You have to be such a big name and so important and have all these skill sets, and you have to land day one and be great. And can I say, Drew Barrymore has all of the former, but not a lot of the latter. And that she is, why they invest. It takes millions of dollars. Why they invested in her. Everyone loves Drew Barrymore. I still do. Everybody loves her persona. She's such a sweet person. She does nice things.
She knows everybody in Hollywood and has known everybody from A to Z, A-list to Z-list, yes. So you think she's a trainer.
And not pretentious. And so, bravely in the midst of COVID, they open her show. Her default seems to be super hyperness, which I totally relate to, which is why I don't have my own show. I have you guys to anchor me down, to tether me to the world. There's glimmers of hope. I mean, the first couple of days were so bad that they're really worth watching. By the second day, I feel like, again, this is why I can't really trash Drew. I feel like by the second day, she had read the reviews too and was like, I just hope I get to do this for a little bit. Like, she's ready to be canceled already. She's so recently, I saw there's some signs of hope, but she has Drew's News, which
I saw the snake one, which she just sort of shrieked her way through, and not one joke landed, and yet she kept barreling on and on and on, and it was uncomfortable, and yet it should work. I mean, it's like the News of the Weird stuff that we do here. These are stories that should land.
Yes. And doesn't it appear to you that Drew is doing everything everyone asks of her? Like, you don't get that she's not cooperating. Like, she is trying her hardest, maybe a little too hard.
Yeah. And the shriekiness is probably a problem, where she screams a little too much. And it is probably endearing when you were in her company, but somehow it doesn't translate onto film.
Do you know the shrieking, though, is the heap of expectations, just like sort of turbo, kind of like small screen, big impact. I go, shriek.
Yeah.
A little bit. And Ross Matthews, I think, has done a guest spot. I think he might be doing some more where he kind of contributes. And that's kind of fun because he's lovely. She talked a lot during that too. But you know what? These things are not made in a day. I'm sure there's a big investment on Miss Drew Barrymore. And so I'm sure they'll keep trying. But boy, that's a hard thing to do. And yeah.
Who's producing it? Who's behind it? Is it television?
Or it's the people at Sony. It's Sony.
Okay. I've had many run-ins with Drew over the years. From when she was a very young girl, and we hung out at the Limelight many times, to when she was in her sloppy phase and I was in my sloppy phase, to she was one of the producers of Freak Show, and so I have known her from Wild Child to the managing professional woman that she is today. And she's an interesting woman, and I love her to death, and I hope for the best for this. It's hard to go up against Kelly Clarkson, which she's opposite, isn't she?
They're in the same markets. I don't know if they're right next to each other, maybe in LA. I watch online. The one interview I will point out, which you should watch because it's fascinating for some of the right reasons, is that she had an interview with Paris Hilton, who she's known her whole life.
Oh, yeah, sure.
They were talking about that they were both kind of institutionalized as teenagers. They were kind of nabbed and brought away and brought to a camp that gave Drew some solace and I guess left a real emotional scars on Paris. So again, that's a great story and that's a great get and that's a great confession. So we'll see how Drew does. I can't hate Drew, but boy, it's hard to launch a talk show.
She's still extraordinarily young though, right? I mean, James remembers hanging out with her when she was like an underage little thing. She's
probably in her early 40s, probably 43, 44-ish, maybe.
You and I are the same age.
All right, well, good luck, Drew. Let's go on to number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9, I watched Filthy Rich on Fox. Did you watch it too?
Yeah.
It's the new nighttime soap opera starring Kim Cattrall, and she's in her Morgan Fairchild, Joan Collins, Donna Mills sort of grand dame era. She plays the matriarch of a Louisiana televangelism family. They've made their billions off of the backs of her Christian fans. And it's fun. What did you think? Give me your quick take.
My friend Abe works on it, so I'm slightly prejudiced.
Okay.
I watched the pilot and the second episode because they're on demand.
Yeah.
I thought it got a lot better in the second episode. Although
that's what I was hoping for, because the thing is, the plot is basically that the father goes down in an airplane accident and is supposedly killed and is MIA, and they read his will and come to find out that he has 3 illegitimate children from 3 different women. And the girl works at a sexy webcam in Los Angeles. The guy works at a pot dispensary in Denver, and the other guy is a former gangbanger in New York. So they all come together and they're going to try and sort of bilk the family of the fortune. And they all, I think, end up working for the family, and they all sort of come together, whatever.
Yes.
I thought Kim Cattrall, that accent kept coming and going. God bless her. Sometimes she was Florida, sometimes she was Southern, sometimes she was French. I didn't know what the hell she was doing, and it seemed like she was dubbed. It seemed like they dubbed her.
There was a couple of moments, perhaps, but it's pilots. People overdo things. I say this with love. If we were up against them in the wig category for RuPaul's Drag Race, we'd have some competition because Miss Kim Cattrall is sporting several number of wig styles.
Yes. I think the whole idea of televangelism is ripe to be dissected in 2020. The idea of bilking people and religious extremists and all that stuff, and how much of it is phony and how much of it is real, and who believes what. I think all of that is fascinating if they go in that direction. I don't know that Fox was the right place for it. I wish that it was on VH1 or TBS or something. I think someone could have gone a little further. I don't know. I'm not sure. I am going to keep giving it a look-see, though.
Is the matriarch, are they still in the televangelism business? Is the matriarch Tammy Faye?
They have a television station in which they preach and sing gospel and sell crap.
It's the Sunshine Network. And it's the Sunshine Network. And they were launching, right when the dad died, they were launching basically Amazon. It's like, they're all eating fried chicken at the table. Like, won't you get some of our Sunshine chicken? Like, in other words, spend all your money on us. So they are tapping into all the zeitgeisty stuff. It's a little Desperate Housewives, especially as it goes on. There's more of a narration and people come in and out, and it comes a little bit. The second episode is narrated by the daughter, because there's a son and a daughter who've grown up with this televangelism. There are so many avenues. They really set it up nice, because the same thing, I'm so old fashioned, but it takes a long time to get a syndicated show going if people have patience, and serialized things used to take time too. You don't have that luxury anymore. So they are throwing stuff against the wall. And
you know, I mean, you know me, you know, I have to fall in love with a couple of with one of the two of the boys on the shows, and there's potential for the Latino boy. There's potential for the young Christian boy. I'm not quite there yet, but I have a feeling that I could be forced.
The pot boy's kind of cute too.
Who is
the actor who plays the pot son?
Oh, okay. I
will. A major twist reveal in 2, but I'm not going to give it away.
Okay, so that's Filthy Rich on Mondays at 9 p.m. on Fox. James, I have a hot guy for you to fall in love with in a series I'm going to talk about a little bit later in the show.
Oh, is this the Octopus one?
You have to stick around.
Okay.
So, number 8, appropriately enough.
Number 8.
My Octopus Teacher. Get it? Number 8.
Yeah, okay.
Have you seen it on Netflix?
I have seen the preview for it. I mean, I've seen the trailer for it, and I've seen people going bananas on Twitter about it, saying that it's just life-changing and life-affirming and wonderful.
I'm going to make a prediction right here, right now. It's going to win the Oscar for Best Documentary. No question. It's the new March of the Penguins. Remember March of the Penguins? But I think this is better than March of the Penguins. It is such a beautiful love story between a man and a little octopus. Craig Forrest, he works on natural history documentaries, and he's with the Maasai in Africa, and he suddenly sort of realizes that he's completely disconnected from the natural world. He returns to his childhood home, which happens to be on where is it?
Cape Horn, right in South Africa.
Storms, yes, the very southern tip of South Africa, where the water is incredibly rough, endless storms. It's about 6 or 7 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. It's cold. You wouldn't get me in it. He goes swimming without a wetsuit, and anyway, long story short.
Wait, but isn't this aren't there more great whites right off the coast of Cape Horn right there? Isn't this like an incredibly dangerous place to be diving?
I think so. There's definitely pajama sharks who play a major role in this because they're the number one predator of octopi.
Oh.
And he goes swimming and he discovers in this little sheltered area an octopus. And it is the most beautiful, jaw-dropping. It's like nothing I've seen before in my life. And it is so stunningly, beautifully photographed, which I guess maybe you expect, but it's not easy to film underwater and capture all the story points. There's a great moment when the little octopus gets attacked by a pajama shark and loses one of its tentacles. And you're like, and the whole thing is so brilliantly filmed. Octopuses, by the way, they aren't
of this world. They are aliens. We know that. There is nothing earthly about them.
Yes, they're so strange. Like, one of the things is 2/3 of their cognition is outside of their brain. They'll have 2,000 little suckers. Each one operates independently. It's like a little brain. And so when that little tentacle goes, it's feeling you, it's smelling you, it's tasting you. It's like, and the whole thing is so sensual, but not, I don't want to, there's no,
they strike up a real friendship and a real understanding between each other, right?
They really do. And it's a beautiful love story. And one of the things about octopi is that they actually don't live for very long. And so, spoiler alert, I think everybody knows how this ends.
Calamari.
Have Kleenex at close hand. But I hate things that make me cry. I really just, want to avoid that at all possible costs.
You are a black-hearted fiend.
I am. But I was happy to watch this because it was sort of a happy tear. Like sometimes I think TV shows or they just want to make you cry because they want to savage you and traumatize you. These were happy tears. I mean, it was truly sad, moving, but also happy tears. There are moments of breathtaking beauty. I will just add one thing about octopuses, or octopi, I should say. Do you know that they can attack a shellfish like a mollusk or something? And they can drill a hole. They can actually drill a hole in the shell. They have a little spike inside them, can come out, drill a hole in the shell, and land it precisely so that it disables the mollusk inside the shell. I mean, that's just one of the many things that these space aliens can do. And
now, do you think you're going to get yourself a pet octopus? Is that something on your bucket list now?
I can never eat octopus again in my life, and I could never have a pet. It would be far too cruel. To see the way they can move and then assume the color and texture of whatever they've moved, it's jaw-dropping. And I know we all learned this in school that they can do this, but when you actually see it and you're like, oh my God, this thing just became this rock. You're like, how do they do that? And you'll be in love with octopi. I mean, it's just
they are either aliens or they are from the future or they are shapeshift. There is something about them that is just weird and crazy.
It is really the most amazing thing. And the other thing is it's beautifully photographed, but the sound, underwater sound. So every grain of sand and the sound of the shells. You know, the Disney film Inside Out, where they have they're in the mind and they have those glass shells and they make such an amazing noise. The sound is, that ASMR thing. I tell you, I haven't seen anything like it in my life. So my Octopus Teacher is streaming on Netflix.
Could I just say eight thumbs up?
Exactly. Every tentacle. Blake, you got a question for us? Because we'll take a break.
I do have a question. Who was the youngest person ever to host SNL, and how old were they?
All right.
Oh, yeah. We'll take a break. We'll have the answer right after the break. You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton Bailey here with Tom Campbell, James St. James, and Blake, of course. We're counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow. And before the break, we had a question.
Yeah, who was the youngest person ever to host SNL, and how old were they?
Well, it's not going to be Drew. Is it going to be like Justin Henry or Gary Coleman or something? What do you say, Tom?
I think it's Drew Barrymore, and I hate numbers, but I'm going to say she was 8.
I'm going with Tom's answer.
It's Drew Barrymore. She was 7.
7.
I remember that episode too. I remember she came out in that little white dress.
Drew Barrymore. She's been in every moment of our lives.
It's true.
Let's keep counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow this week. Number 7, Tom.
Number 7.
You will rarely hear me reference anything remotely professional sports-like, so please take note today. Gale Sayers passed away at, I believe, 77 years old. Gale Sayers was an amazing football player, played for the Chicago Bears. You know him, James St. James, because he wrote a book called I Am Third, which was turned into a blockbuster TV movie in 1971 that introduced James Caan and Billy D. Williams' Brian's Song.
Brian's Song, sure, yeah, okay.
Gale Sayers was the character that Billy D. Williams played. And it just, I realized I don't know much about Gale Sayers. I was reading about him. He was a very, very talented backfield running, catching person. Gale, have you ever heard of Brian's Song, Fenton, growing up in the UK?
It's Brian Piccolo or something, right? Wasn't he a football player who died?
Yes, and the story is that Gale Sayers is a black man. Brian Piccolo is a white man. They were the first integrated roommates in the NFL or in the Chicago Bears. And so it was, they got threats on both sides and all that kind of stuff, but they became fast and furious friends. I think it was like 65. By 1969, Brian Piccolo was discovered, and Gale Sayers was the much better player, but Brian Piccolo just was like, you could not shake this kid. He was just like fast and furious. And it turns out, and the movie starts, I watched Brian's Song last night.
Oh.
Is like driving a vintage car. It's like, it doesn't have any of the cushioning or airbag. It's like gutted, but it's a thing of beauty. Because it is a tearjerker. It is the movie that it was like a movie it's one of the best movies about sports, presumably. And it's a movie that made grown men cry.
Yes.
And Brian Piccolo, Gale Sayers seems like he needs the help. He's kind of socially awkward, and Brian's this outgoing. And it turns out that Brian gets a cancer and is devastated by it and is dead by the time he's 26. And Gale Sayers at the end of the season gets this award. The movie starts this way, and he says, "This is a movie," and it's Billy D. Williams, the movie star. But the first time we ever saw him as Americans, the sexy, sort of laconic black man saying, says, that this really belongs to Brian Piccolo. And in the book, his speech was, "God is first, Brian Piccolo is second, and I am third." And I used to read that thing. I know. And at the end, he dies, and it's James Caan. Also, we hadn't seen this before, The Godfather. Just sexy, vibrant beginning of their career guys. And James Caan does an amazing job. And at the end, it's like he's dying in a bed, and it's the sad scene. And they cut to like he's on his deathbed, and he's hugging his wife, he's crying, and they just smash cut to this earlier footage of them running in slow motion, trying to outdo each other. And they said Brian Piccolo died at 26 years old. He left behind a wife, children, and friends all over the world. But when they think of him, they don't think of how he died, but how he lived. And whoosh. And so Gale Sayers had an amazing career. And the impact of that movie, which I think, in between your Russian binges, Fenton, you might want it. It's free on YouTube, Brian's song. And remember, it's stripped down, but it's Barry Diller was the executive at the network. It was the first Whit Thomas, who went on to do the Golden Girls and all that. Tony Thomas was like 24. It was a little moment. I went into a deep wormhole about it last night. But rest in peace, Gale Sayers. Thank you for your contribution to your life, and thank you for Brian's song.
I just have to say, Blake asks if it's better than the ice skating classic, The Cutting Edge.
I won't go there. I defend my Brian song. Not today. Not on today.
What about Ice Castles?
Also good.
What about Blades of Glory?
I'm not here to defend myself. I would
put it up there with Love Story is one of those early 70s tearjerker thing,
And the TV movie of the week was still a very new thing. And so it just wrenches you. The other fun thing I was listening to, it's also Len Goldberg, who ended up partnering with Aaron Spelling. He was the producer of it. And he said everybody was recorded saying they loved the material, they loved the acting, they loved the dailies. And then they watched the footage and they hated it. They all were sick to their stomachs. They saw the first cut, and they said, never trust the first cut. They said, but they framed it. They acquired more NFL footage, so you actually see Gale Sayers and all his glory and all this kind of stuff. And they also set up the beginning. They said this is a story about a black man. They say a white man. He goes, I can't remember who they quoted, but it's sort of like Shakespeare once said, and it's not Shakespeare, that all true stories end in death. This is a true story. It's just like they framed it at the beginning, they framed it at the end, and it's all about storytelling, right? And we do that all the time. Anyway, it was I got into a deep wormhole last night. I loved every minute of it. Brian's song.
I'm gonna watch it. Thanks. All right, number 6, James.
Number 6.
Number 6, I have seen the best movie of 2020. I cannot rave enough about this on Netflix. The Devil All the Time, okay? And I know there haven't been a lot of movies in 2020, so there's not a lot to compare to, but there are some performances in this that are definite nomination worthy right here. It is one of the performances right just off the bat is Robert Pattinson, who is just destined for he's the new Meryl Streep as far as I'm concerned. His accents in every movie lately are brilliant. It's the early 50s in backwoods West Virginia. Okay, you have a bunch of different storylines going on. You have Bill Skarsgård, who is my favorite Skarsgård. I love him more than life itself. You have Tom Holland, who was Spider-Man, right? Is Spider-Man in all the movies. And he is showing heretofore unseen depth of character. He is an actor's actor, and he is fantastic. He plays a young man who's sort of scarred by violence. He had a very violent and traumatic childhood, and it catches up with him in very unsuspecting ways. You have Robert Pattinson, who plays a molesty preacher, a creepy molesty preacher who is seducing all the young girls in his parish. And he makes your skin crawl. He's so good. He doesn't have much screen time, but when he's on, he dominates the screen. It's unbelievable. Then you have Riley Keough, Elvis's granddaughter, and Jason Clarke, and they play a pair of serial killers who troll up and down the highway looking for hitchhikers, and then she has sex with them while the husband takes the pictures, and then afterwards they mutilate them and chop them up and throw them and bury them. And then you also have Sebastian Stan from Captain Marvel. And he plays like sort of a crooked deputy who's trying to win sheriff. And so you have all these different plot lines that have to converge somehow. And that if they chop up hitchhikers, someone has to go hitchhiking at some point. Tom Holland gets a gun for his birthday, and Chekhov's dictum says, if you get it in the first act, it has to go off by the third act. So what's coming, but when it does come, it is just mind-blowing. It's 2.5 hours long, and it is an investment because it's slow burn, but you are never bored. And when I tell you Riley Keough is Oscar-bound, and Robert Pattinson, you have to believe me on that. It is absolutely fantastic. It's based on a book by Donald Ray Potluck, and he is the narrator, which is an odd thing to do because that's not since Truman Capote have they let writers narrate.
I like that.
It's not a true story then, James.
I don't know if it's based on his childhood and people he knew or something, but it was a very famous sort of thriller book a few years ago, I guess.
Sounds like it'll make a great musical someday.
But just if you watch it for nothing else but Robert Pattinson and Riley Keough, it is, and Tom Holland, and everybody in it is just spectacular. Mia Wasikowska or something, she's an actress. She's in it as well. Jason Clarke. Oh, it's absolutely fantastic. Oh, it was produced by Jake Gyllenhaal too, and Jake, as we know, if you follow the blogs or Twitter, he and Tom Holland are besties. They're best Judies, and I'm not saying there's anything gay between them, but if there was something a little gay between them, I would not be surprised. And so Jake purposely went out of his way to find something for Tom to do that would really showcase his talent. And it's Tom's movie all the way. It's unbelievable.
It does sound really dark. Is it?
It's very, very dark. And yet it's, you end up not sympathizing with them, but you were so drawn into all the different characters and all the different plot lines that it does sort of fly by.
All right. Okay. Double Overtime streaming on Netflix. I want to know when Netflix is going to give us some money for this show, because all we do is talk about Netflix. We talk about Netflix all the time. At number five, the new Netflix series, Away. Have you,
this is about Mars, right? With
it's
okay.
Manned mission to Mars, which I guess you have the feeling that someone's already done it. I know Nat Geo did that series.
Yes, that's what I thought it was.
Hulu did a series with Sean Penn called The First. So I guess it's not. But Hillary
Swank. There was a movie called Mars Needs Women, so it's been around for a while,
And The Martian with Matt Damon.
Well, right. So Hillary Swank is the captain of the international crew going to Mars. And when you think about it, this is a perfect setup, right, for a series along the lines of Lost in space, right? Lost, every episode you tell a different person's backstory interwoven with some kind of crisis of the week, And they're on the spaceship. They're in confined quarters. It's a little bit Orange is the New Black. They're on their way to the Red Planet, and they're all in uniform. They're in a prison in space. And it's pretty good. It's actually, that's the thing. I've sort of found myself thinking, Hillary Swank actually has the least opportunity, I think, of everybody in it. She's commanding this crew, so she has to be this sort of American, heroic. She has to be God, I suppose, in Milton's Paradise Lost, and God is the most boring character, and all the others can be flawed and evil, etc. And the thing about Hillary Swank is her mouth is just so vast. I just, once you've seen it, I can't take my eyes off it. And every time I'm watching her act, and she's a great actress, but I just keep on thinking that mouth could swallow the entire Martian spaceship. But she's got an international crew, so she's got a sort of grumpy Russian, she's got a cold Asian lady who's got a hot lesbian secret, she's got an Indian doctor. It's a multinational mix-up. But James, the love interest for you is so Hilary Swank is leaving Earth at an inopportune time. Her husband, who is also an astronaut, has just had a stroke, and she's leaving him alone with their pubescent, teenage, truculent daughter, and the daughter falls in love with a bad boy, and the bad boy is played by Adam Irigoyen, who
doesn't know.
I think he was in The Fosters. I know, I'm giving it to you, James. Okay. So you can Google. Okay. And he's set up as a bad boy, but it turns out that he's not. And he races motorbikes, but he believes in God and goes to church. And so mom is on her way to Mars. Dad's in hospital, and they're trying to stop their daughter from going off the rails. And it's pretty good. I've watched.
What is it? What is this thing called?
It's called Away.
Now, wait, people were on Twitter were talking crap about it and saying that at any given time, she just sort of grabs the phone, they start FaceTiming, and she's halfway to Mars, and he's they just can always catch each other on their Wi-Fi, and
that is life. Life now is just pick up the iPhone and call them. It's funny.
And that's because in the future they've elected a Democratic president. There's actually progress and things, so people can do the Wi-Fi gets better. Can I just ask, in space, are there showers? Do they showering?
They have showers, but one of the dramas is the water pump breaks, and they got to figure out how to get water, and they've got to water the garden, and it's really.
I'm looking at him. Okay. Oh, okay.
But I think he looks a little. He's sort of got a Latin Wilmer Valderrama look.
I can see a little Wilmer Valderrama. I can see him. He used to do a lot of Disney or Nickelodeon or something. It looks like he has that look about him.
You said, yeah.
Now I also see here that there's somebody. Wait.
James is Googling men, and we're what's going to happen?
Wait, hold on. Where'd it go? Oh yes. There's a gentleman named Ray Panthaki who plays Ronnie Arya.
Yes. He's the doctor. He's the number 2. He's great.
Yes, he looks very handsome as well.
And there's also a very handsome British Ghanaian called Pato Asando, who's the botanist. So it's
yes, I see him, yes.
It's a really good, you'd think it would be a bit like paint by numbers, but it's really good. All right, let's take a break. Blake, have you got a question?
I do, of course. Which of these two statements about the octopus is false? The plural of octopus is octopi. Is that false? Or the octopus has tentacles. Is that false?
You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy, and we'll be right back with the tantalizing answer after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
All right, welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James St. James and Blake. What was the question?
Okay, which of these two statements about the octopus is false? The plural of octopus is octopi.
Sure.
Is that true or false? Or the octopus has tentacles. Is that true or false?
Well, I hope octopi is true, because I was referring to octopi all the way through the first segment, so I look like a complete prat if it's false.
It's octopuses is.
It is octopuses.
No! Really? How come we've been taught our whole lives?
But the other one, it was a trick question. The other is false too. They're not called tentacles. They're arms. Only tentacles are only for squid, cuttlefish, and nautiluses.
What?
Yep.
Well, you're gonna have to redo your whole damn piece.
Yeah, we have to start again. We're gonna go back.
I'm so excited that this show makes me smarter. Thank you, Blake. Thank you so much.
Yes.
All right, let's carry on with the countdown then. So number 4, Tom.
Number 4.
This isn't not a proper amount of time to do a proper tribute, but obviously we lost a notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who lies in state as we record. Shocking, right? You sad, shocking because of the political ramifications which originally pop up. You know, as much as her documentary was out there, and we know a lot about her. Like, just learning about her is so amazing, and her contribution even prior to being in the Supreme Court. And slightly frustrating. Again, life has its own course, but like she had determined during the Obama's presidency to wait until what she presumed was going to be Hillary Clinton, the first female president, to nominate her replacement, and that was a miscalculation. So here we are in a situation where we may lose a seat to the Supreme Court. But again, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I just want to list off, you probably have read these things, but if you're a woman, and women's rights are human rights, with, you know, she was instrumental and a leading force in securing these rights. Obtain a mortgage for women without a male cosigner. Opening a checking account without a male cosigner. Start a business without a male cosigner. Get a credit card. Obtain a business loan. Obtain a job without gender-based discrimination. Retain your employment while pregnant. Obtain birth control without having to obtain your husband's permission. Not be forced to provide proof of sterilization to obtain or refrain employment because they don't want pregnant people. Pension benefits equal to male co-workers and equal consideration to be executors of their children's estates.
You know, you can only hope that the good that can come out of this is that it energizes everybody and it gets people motivated again to you know, and people realize that the rights are on the line and everything, and also just that we need to celebrate people when they're alive, and we need to, you know, she's a great icon for the ages, and she's such an inspiration, and for, you know, little girls everywhere. It's nice that people are hearing her story again and again.
Yes.
In fact, there's a new documentary about her coming out, I think, directed by Frida Lee Mark, Academy Award winner, I believe. So that's good to know, because there's a Notorious RBG. There's another one too, right? So there's at least her memory will be celebrated and recorded. And
you know, a great love story with her and her husband, and just what a beautiful woman she was when she was younger, and what a beautiful old woman she was as well. She just had a beauty about her whole life.
Has there ever been a narrative scripted drama about her life?
Yes.
Yes. About 2 years ago, right?
Yes.
Who
With
was it?
That British actress. I can't remember. She was.
I want to say the woman who played Duchess of Windsor in the Madonna movie. You know the one I'm talking about?
I thought that was Madonna.
Blake, are you Googling? Has Blake left us?
Army Hammer, Felicity Jones. On the basis of sex.
That's right, the basis of sex.
Okay.
I heard one Ruth Bader story where she said that she was doing work before the Supreme Court, and everything was like the sex, and her female secretary said to her, you know, I don't think you should use that word so much. She said, why? She said, because I think the people that you're talking to are basically men, and they're thinking about something very different. So the secretary suggested that she use the word gender instead of sex. Isn't that
That's
something?
interesting.
Yeah.
Rest in power, the Notorious RBG. Number 3.
Number 3.
Now, during Sunday night's Emmy Awards, some of it landed, some of it did not land. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I'm sorry. I stuck around long enough to see Rue win, and then I switched over to Turner Classic Movies, and I watched Tarzan's Peril from 1951. And we have talked on here before about my deep and abiding love of Tarzan movies, how they were something that young gay boys in the 30s, 40s, and 50s could be Tarzan fans and not be outed. You know, you could have a Tarzan poster in your room. You could have a nearly naked man whose buttocks were showing and his, you know, nipples were flashing and his hair was flopping in his eyes and he was just gorgeous. But you could talk about your love for Tarzan with your friends and nobody would ever know the difference, you know, of what you were really up to. This one stars Lex Barker, who is one of my favorite Tarzan. He's a sort of a California dude, and he's got blonde hair, and he talks like me, Tarzan, you Jane. Like he sort of has like a California accent,
a valley accent.
Yes. There are some things about this one though that sort of make it stand out from other Tarzan movies. It was the first Tarzan to actually be filmed partially in Africa. And so you have actual tribes, African tribes. You have actual ceremonies that were filmed. You have like the plains and the lions and the waterfalls and everything like that. And it's a vanished Africa that was 1950. That Africa is no longer around. And so that's sort of fascinating. The other interesting thing about this one is that it stars Dorothy Dandridge, who was Dorothy Dandridge, as Lena Horne called her. She was the Black Marilyn Monroe, and she was so beautiful and so gorgeous. This is sort of early in her career, and she plays an African queen, and with a fabulous hairdo and fabulous jewelry and a little, 30s outfit, even though she's in the middle of the jungle. But, Hollywood didn't really know what to do with Dorothy Dandridge. They knew she was a star, but because it's 1950s Jim Crow era, they didn't have parts for her. There was nothing, she did, Carmen Jones and Porgy and Bess later on, and Islands Under the Sun, something like that. She had a few roles, but basically she had a very short and tragic career, and she died very young. And this is a chance to see her in all her glory. And I think, like, the choice is if you're going to play, you have the option to play a maid in a big budget movie, or you can play an African queen in a Tarzan. And by God, go play the African queen, because it's, she doesn't have much time on screen, but when she does, she just floats off. She's so beautiful and so magnetic. And even though Tarzan is supposed to be with Jane, you can tell he's really wishes he could toss Jane out the window and run off with Dorothy, because she's just magnificent. So yeah, I was just completely I was in a pig in mud watching Tarzan's Peril from 1951 on Turner Classic Movies.
It's a stupid question. Is it in color or black and white?
It's black and white. And
the TV series, that was in the 60s, right?
Yeah, there was. Was that the Ron Ely one?
Ron Ely.
Ron Ely. Yes,
he invested on that. They were in a canoe.
Yes, and the great thing, because Tarzan movies and serials and everything, they always have like a snake puppet come out that's really cheesy, and they have an old lion who's been on the MGM lot for he's got toothless and all drugged up, and dust comes out when they touch him. There was a man-eating plant out of the blue for no reason that just the leaves come and try and devour Tarzan. It's so silly and cheesy, but like I said, there's some amazing footage there of actual Africa in mid-century.
All right, so that's Tarzan's Peril, now on TCM through October 20th. Number two. Raised by Apes, Tarzan, right? Raised by Wolves.
Oh, what is this?
The new series on HBO Max. First couple of episodes directed by Ridley Scott. And boy, is this feels like a sequel to the last Alien movie. It's in that very sort of blue and gray palette. And basically it's two androids land on one of the exoplanets. It's Kepler 22b, which is actually, I believe, I've
heard of it, yeah.
In the Goldilocks zone, which means that basically human life as we know it could exist there. These two androids played by Amanda Collin and Abubakar Salim, who's really amazing. He's been in Assassin's Creed and Origins. Anyway, they land there, and they are the last parents to human children. And they basically take 6 embryos and sort of plug them into their androidness and raise them, because basically humanity and Earth has been destroyed in a war between the atheists who've lost the war and the Mithraics, who are basically, your televangelist Christian evil bastards. And they had androids, the human race had androids to do all their chores so that the human people could concentrate on faith. And of course, the result of this concentrating on faith and being freed up from chores was a war in which all the atheist people who said there isn't a God, etc., were exterminated. And so these two androids fled the planet and they land in this other planet and they raise 6 children. It's incredibly cerebral and sort of austere. There's a twist because Amanda Collin, who's brilliant as the android, she discovers that at first they think she's just a low-grade model. She's called Mother, and the other android, the guy, is called Father. And the thinking is that she's just a low-grade model. But she is not. She is a Necromicon type who can just raise her arms and take off into the air. And the best bit is she can, do a little scream. She can go, ah, like that. And people just shatter and just blow up and splatter everywhere, which is a neat trick to have.
Why is it called Raised by Wolves?
I'm not entirely sure, and I've watched 2 episodes. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, but the Mithraics are some surviving Mithraics, these Christian people, and they're on an ark, and they come to take the kid, and they think the kid's a prophet. It's all very, like Ridley Scott Alien. You're not entirely sure what begets which, but it's yet to be found out. It's incredibly bleak and challenging.
I thought for sure the androids were going to be called Bill Wolf and Sally Wolf, and they're
raised by the wolves. But do the aliens have emotions? I mean, do the androids have emotions?
The androids are very sophisticated, and they do have emotions, but they're not ever overtaken by their emotions. Their emotions are programmed, so he can tell jokes, and they suffer incredibly, and most of their children die. But they never seem to lose their sense of humor or their sort of sense of perspective of the mission, which is that humanity must survive without the sort of crux of religion. And then, of course, everything goes to shit.
You are casting a movie about androids. You don't have to cast good actors if they don't have any emotions.
Well, they are good actors, Tom, because actually they have to play machines that have a human aspect. They have to they have to be like Scarlett Johansson in Her. Remember that movie, the Spike Jonze film? Her voice is it's just that marvelous twilight zone between machine and mankind. And
well, even if you think about Hal in 2001, was, even though he didn't modulate his voice, he was still the most terrifying, one of the most terrifying villains of all time.
That's right. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. It's just fabulous.
I can't let you do that.
I'm sorry, Dave. I can't let you do that. All right, let's take a break. Tonight, I got to tell you, Drag Race Holland episode 2 is airing on Wow Presents Plus here in the States. And
who's the guest?
Nikki, I thought you'd never ask, James. Notorious is the guest. And the funny thing about Drag Race Holland, it's translated, of course, so you can read subtitles, but it's Dutch is a really English-sounding language. Even though you don't really know what they're saying, you think you do. And then they're very nice because they throw in English words every now and then.
It's like a Ridley Scott movie. You kind of know what's going on.
Exactly. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll reveal the number one thing that made us go wow this week.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with Tom and James. We've been counting down the top 10 things that make us go wow. We've reached number 1.
Tom, take it away.
Number 1.
Let's talk about the Emmy Awards. Big picture, little picture. Little picture close to home is that RuPaul's Drag Race had the great fortune of winning 6 Emmys, different categories. And I'm probably going to mess it up, but it was hair, makeup, editing, host,
casting.
casting, and outstanding reality competition show 6. It's RuPaul broke the record as with 5 consecutive outstanding host wins, which was previously he beat Jeff Probst, who's amazing on the grandfather of them all, Survivor, which is still thriving.
And doesn't Ru now have more Emmys than Mary Tyler Moore?
I don't know that. I'll have to Google.
I believe I saw that somewhere.
You know, this was our 12th season that got recognized. And years ago, a few seasons ago, I went to Ru's dressing room. I said, Ru, do you know what, it was like our 10th season. I said, do you know what the Mary Tyler Moore show is doing in their 10th season? I said, nothing, because they only had 7 seasons.
I have to chime in here because we now, RuPaul's Drag Race is now the world record holder for the most Emmys won by a reality competition show. And there's a part 2 to that, which is, how many Emmys do you think Donald Trump, The Apprentice, won?
0.
Absolutely 0. And it bugs the F out of him, I have to say. He says the Emmys are corrupt, like mail-in ballots, blah, blah, blah. But it's just comforting to know in this world that Donald Trump won 0 Emmys for The Apprentice.
Here's some fun behind-the-scenes stuff, because the Emmys were remote. You know, a lot of the categories were announced during the week. Nicole Byer was on; she was either online streaming or she was on FXX, and finally it was Jimmy Kimmel on Sunday. So we're busy doing our stuff, and all of a sudden we'd be interrupted, like, we just won an Emmy, like, whoa! And this weekend, I don't think I'm telling too much, Ru was shooting a commercial, and we found out he won as host. And ran in. He's like, oh my God, I mean, genuinely happy and so excited. We had pre-taped acceptance speech, which was beautiful, and where he dedicated to Chi Chi DeVayne, among other things. And it was so funny because it was the perfect thing, because he was doing like a commercial that involved a lot of like repetitive movement, like, like bend over, say this. And she's like, oh my God, it's so amazing. Woo! Okay, let's go back. Your dog. So it just kind of gives you the full scope of the glamour of show business. That it's just
is
like
Ru doing a Purina commercial. Is that what it is?
It's just the idea that the work is very piecemeal, and it's not. It seems always so glamorous. It's just like when you're right in the middle of it. It was a fun juxtaposition.
So, Mike, can I ask you about the night, the show, the Sunday night show?
Live, they had, you saw online, they had robots and people, and they had sent Ru one of these boxes, and when it came, we're just exhausted. It's like, well, there'll be a box sent to this location where Ru will be. All the nominees will get it, but only yours will pop open and give you the Oscar. The Emmy, if you win. And we're like, oh, that sounds like such a. Well, what happens if you don't win and the box is just going to be sitting there? And luckily, and Theron ran in and said to Ru, who was accepted on his own, and just said, oh, by the way, it's gonna. They just warned us. It's gonna. If it opens, it makes a big noise. And so Ru's like, I got it. And then he's sitting there. It's remote. It's weird. You're like, he was in front of his camera. We're kind of in the background. And then he's like, ladies and gentlemen, RuPaul's Drag Race. He was like, oh, he was off, a little delay. And then, pow.
Right in the face by an Emmy, like, pow.
It threw him off in a wonderful way. And, both his speeches were about love. And
he got him. He was in drag. How? And that was absolutely, I was gobsmacked. He was outside of Drag Race. Am I allowed to say that? How crazy that is? He was
in drag for one of the speeches, but he was out of drag for Sunday night. The live thing.
The other suit was fantastic. I loved that suit. Yeah. I want it when he throws it away or gives it.
So the remote-controlled boxes that open is a recipe for potential disaster. Like, what if you don't have a signal and you can't get the remote thing to open up at the right moment?
What if you are too close to the box and all of a sudden it bops you on the head? I mean, the potential for things to go wrong.
Murdered by an Emmy,
Yeah. Isn't that the beauty of live television? Isn't that you want to have something dangerous?
Aside from self-serving remarks, though, it was a brilliant show, wasn't it? Like at the beginning with Jimmy Kimmel and the way
Wait a minute. I will not let that one pass. No, the bit with Jimmy Kimmel and Jennifer Aniston that went on for 45 minutes, it was terrible.
Oh, she's so funny. I think Jennifer Aniston is a great comedy gold. The way she manhandled the fire extinguisher was so funny, and the way that Finn kept on.
I think Jennifer Aniston literally single-handedly saved Hollywood from a forest fire. I mean, like a Dangerous, and she was just like on it.
I liked Zendaya. I thought her speech was amazing. Yeah. I thought Mark Ruffalo's speech was amazing. Yeah. There were some really beautiful moments in it, and some great, and some great outfits too.
Yeah.
Wasn't it chilling though when the way they intercut the audience from previous years with the jokes, and you were like, this is really good. It works. It's like, so no one ever needs to go again. It can just be
every year, just the same crowd reaction.
Right. Oh, we've reached the end. No. All right. Thanks for tuning into the Wow Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM. You can listen to previous episodes on our YouTube channel, Wow Presents. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Until then, be safe, be socially distanced, wear a mask, go out and do something that makes the world go wow.